Chargers, cords, and remotes. Welcome back to Sound the Siren. I'm Xavier.
I'm Dylan. Welcome back to another episode, and today we begin the AFL preview, not the review just yet, but we'll have a continuous series going on through the year, hopefully, if we manage to stick to our schedule, reviewing every game and previewing every game. But round one is back, and Zave, isn't it great to have some AFL footy?
It is. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Ever since the end of last season, I've been patiently waiting for Carlton to come back and versus Richmond in round one. Can't wait, to be honest. I'm really excited.
So, do you want to jump into anything, or should we get straight into it?
I reckon we should get straight into the tips, though.
All right, awesome. I'll let you kick us off. Carlton versus Richmond.
So, Carlton versus Richmond, highly anticipated game, first round of every season. Carlton obviously have some good pickups. Zach Williams, who unfortunately is going to miss this game. Adam Sard was a great pickup for Carlton, or hopefully will be a great pickup for Carlton. But in saying all that, I'm still going to have to go with Richmond. They're the minor premiers from last year, and they're going to look to continue their dominance this year.
Hey, glad to see some non-bias from Zay. This might be the first time in Sound the Siren history, but yeah, as you said, highly anticipated game, and I think I'm going to go with Richmond just, but this time last year, the Blues were really, really competitive for the first three quarters until the Tigers started to surge away. But yeah, shame Zach Williams misses out, and as you stated, Adam Sard, great pickup, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Blues defense adapts to the Tigers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I look to see Wiedering again. Last year, he was, I think, for at least for Carlton, he was best on ground. As far as I know, he kept Tom Lynch he kept him to 4 kicks and 0 marks. So 22 dream team, Jacob, and 0 goals. So Wiedering, obviously, he had a breakout season last year, and I think he's going to look to make the All-Australian team this year. He won Carlton's best and fairest just fairly recently. Hopefully he can lock down Lynch again and lead Carlton into what could be, but probably won't be, a big win.
Could be an upset though. I do agree with you. As much as I try to annoy you just subtly with some Blues opinions, I do think they're a serious chance. But the Friday night game is the Western Bulldogs and the Pies, and it's Adam Treloar's revenge. We saw how they forced him to exit really, and a rough off season for the Pies. Tom Phillips departing, Jaden Stevenson out the door, but yeah, the Bulldogs will have their chance with their midfield, and I think they should be victorious.
As you were saying just before, obviously it's Adam Treloar's first time going against his old team, and they didn't, as you said, leave on the best terms. And it'll be interesting to see how he plays and how he is with his Collingwood teammates and coaches. And I think his whole situation was a little bit misread by a lot of people. He's on big money, I'm pretty sure, and they needed to get rid of him, to be honest, because if they didn't get rid of him and some of the other players they got rid of, like Jaden Stevenson, they would have had Darcy Moore and Jordan De Goey, who they rate very highly. They would have had them leave through free agency and got absolutely nothing in return for them other than the compensation pick. But instead, they did their trades. They obviously traded Stevenson to North Melbourne, and they traded Treloar to the Bulldogs so that in order to keep the other two stars that they have happy and with their team. So some sacrifices had to be made, and unfortunately, Treloar was the one that had to leave. But I think I'm still going to go with the Bulldogs. As you said, their midfield is just too good for Collingwood.
Yeah. And I think another point of discussion will be Josh Dunkley. He tried to exit last year in the free agency, unfortunately didn't, but hopefully the Dogs can get on better terms with him, and at the end of the year we'll see if he does request another trade. But we're only at the start of the season, and I've also gone with the Dogs. The Saturday day game is Melbourne Fremantle at the G.
Melbourne, and for me, this is probably going to be one of the closest games of the round, at least just by looking at it from where we are. But I think I'm going to go with Melbourne. But to be honest, it could go either way. I think both of these teams are sort of in that middle from like 13 to 8 sort of range. They're gonna both be fighting for the final spot in the finals, along with some other teams like Carlton, obviously. But I'm going with Melbourne just with no confidence.
Yeah, Melbourne, in my opinion. However, I did state last week I wouldn't be surprised if the Dockers had a breakout season, which I know is probably an unusual opinion, but they do have some great players. Hayden Young in his second year looking to make an impact, and their back line is looking solid. I think Alex Pearce is back in the mix, Luke Ryan in career best form. But yeah, I do agree. I think the Demons will get up, and it'll be good to have the red and blue army back. It's been a while, a year and a half and counting for the D's since their last game, and we'll transition nicely into the next game, which is the Cats and the Crows at Adelaide Oval. And we know how significant the crowd is at Adelaide. And once again, I wouldn't be surprised if Adelaide did put up a good contest, but I'm going to tip Geelong.
Yeah, as I was saying, with Melbourne and Fremantle, they're really close and really similar as far as where they're heading into this year, which couldn't be less true for Adelaide and Geelong. We know Geelong was just lost in the grand final, and unfortunately unfortunately they lost, but they are grand finalists, and Adelaide were the wooden spoons, or the wooden spooners. So I'm going with Geelong. I'm sure 99% of people will, but yeah.
Yeah, we're speeding through these already at Essendon Hawthorn, the Saturday night game, which they did want to be moved at the MCG, unfortunately was declined. And this to me will be a very close game. I did say that Essendon were going to be bottom three, and we actually had a comment suggesting that we were a bit harsh on the Dons. And now that I think of it, I do tend to agree a little bit, and I've actually tipped the Dons this week.
Again, I think these two teams are in pretty similar spots, although not the same as Fremantle and Melbourne. I think both of these teams, unfortunately, are going to be a bit of cellar dwellers this year. Same as you, though, I'm going with Essendon, again, with no confidence. I'm not sure that either of these teams are even going to be close to playing finals, but I'm going with Essendon.
Yeah, not the most competitive of weeks as far as matchup goes. Brisbane and Sydney, the next game at Brisbane, and in my opinion, I think Brisbane will take it pretty comfortably. However, I do want to see some young guns from the Swans, Braden Campbell and Logan McDonald, if he's picked. I'm not 100% sure if he will be. And also their backline. Jordan Dawson, I think, could turn into a star this year if given the kickouts, which he did take in the preseason game.
Yeah, as much as you said, Sydney have all that young talent. I'm still going with the Brisbane Lions. They won a final last year, finished top four, I do believe. Probably going to finish top four again, so I'm still going with them.
Yep, 100% the Lions, and they managed to get to the prelim and maybe even a step further this year. Those top four teams are really competitive. The Sunday game, North Melbourne versus Port, and once again, I think it's a clear winner. I've got Port Adelaide even at Marvel Stadium.
Yeah, again, Port Adelaide won the minor premiership last year, and they're going up against what I believe is the worst team in the league right now. They lost Sean Higgins, who's been a very, very good piece for them in recent years. I think Ben Cunnington might be back. I'm not totally sure, but I haven't really looked. But he's obviously was injured for a large part of last year, so it'll be good to see him come back.
A team that's close to my heart on the Sunday, the Saints and the Giants, and the Saints are missing some prolific pieces. Max King, who was hit in the temple with a golf ball, so he's out due to concussion protocols, and he's only missing because of a day or so, I believe, unless it happened just recently. But so Max King's out. James Frawley suffered a hamstring injury. Rowan Marshall, we know that he's out for probably the first 6 weeks, I think I saw. Paddy Wright has gone back to see his kid, which is probably well deserved. Unable to see him in the hub, but I'm a bit biased. I'm tipping the Saints.
I'm going to tip GWS, and again, they burnt me last year, and they're probably going to burn me again. I'm not sure that they'll make the finals, but I think they're still so talented. And as you said, St Kilda's missing all of these pieces. But what I'm most interested to see is, or to know, is how someone can get hit in the head with a golf ball. How does that actually happen?
I believe I read it up.
Is he waiting for a friend to just pitch it up into him, or
it was hit at right angles and it went straight into his temple.
So really unlucky.
But at the same time, lucky because it could have done severe damage to him.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, very lucky but unlucky for the Saints, and some new debutants for the Giants. They've just released Tanner Bruhn, who kicked 4 in the preseason game, and Matt Flynn, the ruckman, who's overtaking Mumford with Bruce out for shoulder surgery. But yeah, you've got the Giants, I've got the Saints. I think even with all those injuries, we have some players who can step up. Jack Steele, obviously, who's taken on the captain role, the co-captain role. And Brad Crouch will be back in round 3, so also another loss for the Saints. But it should be one of the closer games of the round, I do believe.
You will get Jay Gresham back, though, I'm pretty sure, which will be good to see as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
he missed, I think, stress fractures or something. He's back. So
Yeah.
he missed lots of time last year. And it'd be good to see him.
The final game of the round at Optus Stadium, a 6:10 start, and it's the battle of the coasts, West Coast and Gold Coast. And once again, it's been the trend of this video, an obvious winner for me, West Coast. However, Gold Coast do have a young squad, and I predicted last week maybe a surprise finals appearance. Maybe a bit far-fetched, but yeah, I've got the Eagles winning this one.
I think Gold Coast is one of the harder teams to pick where they'll finish this year. Obviously, they weren't great last year, and they haven't been great for most of the last decade, to be honest. But I think they're interesting because they're so young. We don't know how far they're going to progress or how much all of their players are going to progress. But I've still got to pick West Coast. We know how good they've been over the same period that Gold Coast have been bad. So we'll see. I think they're going to win, but we'll see.
And that does it for the weekly tips. This will be a series going on. The week that was, it will be named. And I know Zave wanted to touch on the NBA briefly, so take it away, Zave.
I want to hear a little bit from you about your team. Whether it's venting, but obviously now they're playing well, so probably not the best word to use. But we know they've gone from the 12 seed, and now they're up to the 4 seed and a 9-1 in their last 10 games. So I want to hear a little bit of what you have to say about how your team's going.
Well, I tried to explain this to a couple of people earlier this year, and it's injuries and COVID, Zave. Jimmy's back to full health, and he's playing absolutely amazing. But yeah, after the LA Clippers without Kawhi and Paul George, I thought we needed a reshuffle. But I did know that Jimmy wasn't up to his full durability. But yeah, no, we're playing well. We're playing very good basketball against Orlando today on the road, and we've really struggled there in recent times. We lost to them earlier on their home floor at the season, our first game it was. But today, Tyler Hero showed some form, which he's struggled to find. And yeah, I don't know. We've come together nicely. But I do believe if LaMarcus Aldridge is up for grabs, that we might have to go after him or just someone else before the deadline.
I want to hear as well on your thoughts about Jimmy Butler's MVP candidacy, because we know, as I said, the Heat were 9-1 in their last 10 games, but they were the 12 seed. So we know before that it was Jimmy Butler wasn't playing that much, if not at all. But we know also he's had a scoring streak of over 27 over the last however so and so games. But the Miami Heat weren't just bad; they straight up sucked before Jimmy Butler came back from his injuries and his coronavirus. The amount of time he spent out due to the coronavirus. So, what do you think about his case as an MVP candidate?
It's up there. It's very, very much so up there. But you say Jimmy Butler and I say Chris Paul. The Suns are second in the West and they're absolutely dominating. And for some reason, Chris Paul isn't even mentioned in the top 5. So I'd love to see him up there. I believe Chris Paul and Jimmy Butler deserve to be in that spot because they're looking at team records and the Suns are second. So the NBA rankings are a little weird, and I know I haven't really answered your question about Jimmy Butler, but I did have a question for you. Do you think LeBron's season has been a little overrated thus far?
I don't think so at all. In my opinion, just before the All-Star break, he was the number 1 MVP candidate. And then just going into as the All-Star break had started, I just gave it to Joel Embiid just at the end of it. But now we know Embiid's out for another 2 to 3 weeks with, I think it was a knee injury. Yeah, so I think LeBron's got every chance over the next couple of weeks to go back into that number 1 position. We know Jokic's team is now on the rise in the Nuggets, so he's going to be another competitor with LeBron. But I think LeBron, the MVP is right there for him. We know he needs one more to tie Michael Jordan for 5 MVPs, and he hasn't won one since like 2012 or something. So it's going to be there for him. Obviously, it's another accolade he can add to his legacy, but we'll see what happens. Just quickly, if I was the Bulls, Timberwolves, or 76ers, I'd probably be feeling a little bit stupid right now, because we know the Bulls got rid of Jimmy Butler because they didn't think he was going to get better. They thought he was as good as he was going to get. Then the Timberwolves got rid of him because they were just a lackluster franchise, to be honest. They just sucked. And then the 76ers, a little bit different, but pretty well, they chose to have Tobias Harris, who's been bowling out,
And Al Horford.
and Al Horford, who hasn't been bowling out, over Jimmy Butler, which we know, using hindsight, wasn't a great decision. But props to Jimmy Butler. He keeps proving over and over again that he is a great leader and keeps proving everyone wrong.
And another player who hasn't received as much praise but has been dominating this year, and I'd say is probably in the top 10 MVP conversation for me, is Nikola Vucevic. He had 38 points today, and maybe not top 10, but he's very underrated, severely underrated. And that Orlando team, even with the losing record, he continues to put up consistent numbers. So just take into account Vucevic. He's been playing very well.
I think he has been playing very well. Obviously, he was an all-star as well, but I wouldn't have him in the top 10, and I think that's a little bit of a stretch because the Magic are 14th in the weaker conference. They're only in front of the Pistons in the East. And then there's other names that we haven't named as well, like, as we said, Embiid, Chris Paul, Jimmy Butler, LeBron, Jokic, some of these players, but also Steph Curry and Damian Lillard are also great options. So I wouldn't quite have him top 10, but he has been playing very well.
Not top 10, but as far as individual performance, he's up there. He's playing some good basketball. So, here in the end of the episode, Dave, any other notes?
Nothing else from me.
All right, well, we're keen for footy to be back, and the crowds could be lifted to 70 and 75,000. So we hope it is, because footy with a crowd is absolutely amazing, and I don't think we appreciated it enough before the coronavirus, and now we can expect big things. And I know the NBA's starting to let some crowds back in as well, surprisingly. But yeah, so thanks for watching this episode. This will be a weekly thing, tips, review, all of that good stuff, and some fantasy as well, which we'll get into. So I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.